working members yet, you would like to sign up because there are people that have got their passport. Welcome and thank you so much for coming. I'm Cheryl, Chair of the Residents Association, and with me we have the famous people from Vuma. So we have Neil and we have Johannes, and you guys stand up and just say, these are the guys who just say hello. And if I can hand straight over, not mess about, we all want to find out this wonderful world race. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming out tonight. I mean, it's cold out there, and obviously there's a lot of interest in this project. To Braboa for setting it up, for the primary school for giving us the hall. For the primary school giving us made the hall available, and also to Cool Ideas for giving us this free Wi-Fi link tonight so that we can broadcast it out on the web. So you obviously know that there's something happening in Parkhurst. And you might have heard that Parkhurst is getting Vuma. Why is Parkhurst getting Vuma? Effectively, Braboa, your Residents Association and Homeowners Association, has embarked on a journey to satisfy two needs in your society or in this community. The first one is, and you've all been suffering from a poor level of connectivity out into the wider world for quite some time. There's a lot of seats here at the front, if you don't mind. Okay, so the two reasons why you've been doing this is, first of all, to get world-class broadband to your community. You've got a lot of home workers in this environment, journos, people that require connectivity for their day-to-day lives. But aside from that, you also need some improved security. So you embarked on a CCTV project, and you realized that you required also connectivity in order to really make this effective in your environment. Oh, okay. All right, so the first question that we normally get asked is, who are we? Who's Vuma? You've never heard of us before? And the story really starts sort of 6-8 years ago when fiber came to Africa. From the east coast of Africa and the west coast of Africa, there's all these undersea cables that have started to connect with South Africa, to connect us to the internet with fiber, and provided huge bandwidth to connect South Africa to the rest of the world. And from there, other firms like Fiberco, Dark Fiber Africa, and a variety of other players took the fiber from the coast and started to connect the cities. And connect the cities among each other, and started to dig up your trench, dig up your sidewalks here in the communities where you see the fiber coming in, and then they close it up, and 2 weeks later you see them coming and digging the same place all over again, closing it up, and so on it goes. So this has created a huge amount of capacity for connectivity to the rest of the world. However, the last little bit, which we call the last mile, really has not been solved. They've really connected the cell phone towers, they've really connected the big businesses, but that last little inch, last little mile to the homes and the businesses has not really been addressed. We've been involved in this industry from the beginning, by the metro fiber networks, and we realized there was a gap to connect this last little inch. There's no point in having these huge pipes and a little hose pipe here at the end, because really it doesn't really mean a lot. So we started another firm Conduct about 2.5 years ago, on a very similar premise, open access, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, where we connect the businesses to this big infrastructure that is available. And that proved to be extremely successful, and we sold that business in April this year. And we've connected thousands and thousands of businesses. So if you can imagine 4-kilometer rings, precincts of businesses, so it's the classic areas, the Bryanstons, the Hyde Parks, the Lolos, you know, all of those areas. Every business in those areas are connected to fiber, and they have a choice of using it through service providers, whether they want to or not. And we've always thought that because we suffer personally from the same problems as you do. We've got a promise of 4 meg or 10 meg speed line, but in reality we're getting like this little dripping tap of connectivity out there in the marketplace. So we came up with a plan about a year ago to fiber up from Parkers to Ponte Towers. Yeah, so this whole corridor as a proof of concept. But clearly we were very busy with all the activities, but then somehow, by hook or by crook or serendipity, Roboa really embarked on this journey. And they contacted us, and we dusted off the plan, and we engaged with the community, because we always felt that it must be a community-led project. You know, really this is something that needs to stem rising from the grassroots level to facilitate private enterprise to really come into your communities. In reality, I suppose the big telco players should have been here already, but for whatever reasons, they've been sort of asleep at the wheel. We should have been connected a long time ago. If you look at the average connectivity and broadband speed in South Africa at the moment, it's 3.2 megabits per second. That is poor. We're somewhere down at the bottom of the pile. Combined with that, we are the second most expensive broadband service in the world. It's only Venezuela that is more expensive for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on there. So in reality, this is not just a local problem. This is actually a much bigger problem than what we have here in Parkhurst. But clearly, somewhere, something needs to happen to start a change in the environment and for the communities to take charge of their own destiny. So there is clearly a big advantage for fiber versus copper. Fiber is 250 times faster than ADSL. And in theory, it's probably unlimited. It's more just because at the speed of light, we can really pump a lot of data through there, but it's more constrained by the equipment on the ends of the pipe, the pumps, let's say, at the end of the pipes. Why is this important? Why is speed important? Aside from the frustration levels between clicking and waiting, clicking again. If you look at what's happening in the world, content is obviously becoming a bigger and bigger part of our lives. My wife spends, I don't know, an inordinate amount of time on Facebook, uploading photos of the kids, connecting to our overseas families with Skype and video calls and so on. And there's a lot of frustration that you can't really act in the way you would hope to. And then also from a work perspective, it's very important to have good connectivity. We're definitely becoming more remote workers. Data becomes a much greater and greater part of our lives. So just to give you an illustration, just at a theoretical level, HD movie will take on ADSL, if you get the 4 megs, an hour and a half to download. Where with fiber, at the 1 gig range, take 9 seconds. And if you look at what's happening in South Africa, our whole environment is just geared around data at the moment and not a lot of content. We're not getting a lot of TV over the internet, etc. And that's all really because of the lack of capacity for the pipes to accommodate that. So, but somehow we need to break this nexus. Do we have too small pipes so there's no really information that can flow? Or do we open up the pipes and we trust that the content will come? And our philosophy is, let's open the pipes and it will come. So what we're trying to do, what Vuma is all about, is to create an open access network, and I'll explain that in a second, to give high-speed fiber to every home. But we want to do it at the prices of ADSL. There's no point in me giving you a fiber service at 2,000 or 3,000 rands, but you haven't really got any content or use for it. The only way we're going to do it needs to be at ADSL prices, and over time, the content will come. And that's our philosophy. Okay, so what is open access? You've heard this term before. Now, we talked about going up and down the sidewalk, and then they dig, and you think, my word, it's so disruptive, I can't get to work, all of these guys on the road, and they close it up, and it's, at least it's finished. And next week, there's somebody else. How does that make sense? And the reason this is happening is, you've got one provider putting in their fiber, And then another day, another guy putting in their fiber, and so they go. Imagine the duplication of capital and the waste of capital of putting that infrastructure into the ground. And open access means we put in the infrastructure, but we let the service providers play on it and provide the services to you. So we are decoupling the infrastructure from the services. And that's part of the reason why I think the Residents Association looked favorably upon our bid, because what we're doing is we're making it much more cost effective. So imagine if there's 3 players in Parkhurst, everybody putting in their fiber networks. Do you know how it's extremely expensive to do this? And they want to recover their money. So now the prices are just going to rise in order to recover the money. So what we do is we level the playing field, but we're trying to recover the infrastructure cost across all the providers. So that is what open access means. We put in the infrastructure, but we don't play in the services so that we are not tainted or trying to monopolize the infrastructure for our own benefit alone. So what that does, it gives you a lot more choice. For example, the competing bids would have been a single provider putting in their fiber and putting their services over that. That doesn't really give you choice. And I think you feel potentially, well, maybe if the service is poor, how do I actually move to another player? How does that work? It doesn't really give you that sense of, oh no, I have choice in the marketplace for the best service offering. Also gives you a lot more control. You'll be able to switch from a poor performing supplier in 20 seconds to a better performing supplier. Obviously, you'll be at the speed of light. Okay? So we'll be able to get up to a gigabit per second, and it'll be reliable and stable. It's fiber. It's not contended, it is just pure, stable, naked fiber. It will result in desirable homes, more desirable homes. In the States, they've done a study where the average house price with a fibered home is about 2 to 3% higher than the house that is not connected to fiber. So in Parkhurst, I think it's maybe 2.5, 3 million is your average house price. So imagine just connecting up the fiber, in theory, provides each one of you 50,000 of the landowners or the homeowners 50,000 worth of value over time. And I can tell you my sister's already planning to move to Parkhurst because she lives in Melville and she's in the trade, so she needs to get here. Then it'll become a lot more desirable, and because of the distinct lack of good services, it'll make Parkhurst considerably more attractive. There will also be a lot less cost. Because we separate the infrastructure from the services, there's going to be a lot more competition. You'll see a little bit later on what that will mean. Where the traditional copper network that you know is monopolized at the moment, and everybody has to pay effectively a tax to use that service. And by eliminating that, we're providing a much more cost-competitive environment for the ISPs, the internet service providers, to come and compete against each other. Okay. And obviously, it's a lot less risky. It is our capital that we're putting in the ground, so you don't have to raise the money yourselves. And we are not asking for any contractual commitment in advance. We don't believe you should do something contractually without trying it or listening to your neighbor to understand if it really is worthwhile. We ask for a moral commitment so that we know it is socialized in your community wide enough, and it's not just a couple of techies in the Residents Association that wants high-speed fiber to their home. It's really so that we understand the community is involved, they understand the benefits, and there's sort of a grassroots thing. This is a painful process. Do not be under any illusion. It is a pretty painful process during the construction phase, but if we know that the community is on board and they understand the benefits, we can make this work as a team. And that's why we're so excited about this project. We've done a fantastic job at mobilizing the community, and the whole world, the whole South Africa is actually looking at us at the moment and say, oh my word, are these boys going to pull it off? Because if they do, it has wider ramifications. It is not just Parkhurst. The other players will be under pressure We need to be more competitive. Other communities are mobilizing themselves. I get phone calls now from everybody all over the country that wants to emulate what is happening in Parkhurst. So we're embarking here on a very interesting, fraught, but interesting journey, which, you know, we are committing with you down this path, and we trust and believe that it's going to be really a big success for you as a community and for us, obviously, as a firm. So how does this all work? So you hear about fiber. So simplistically, there's going to be fiber from the boundary of your property. Maybe 10 blocks or so will be aggregated. All the fibers will come together into a street cabinet. You'll see some sexy street cabinet somewhere on the corners. There's maybe 11 of them, 12 of them across your whole residential area. And they will then, in turn, come together in one point. Somewhere here in Parkhurst, maybe here at the primary school, somewhere on the primary school's premises. And from there, we take it all the way back to Izando, to Terraco, where there's a big data center where all the internet service providers are. This sounds very technical, but it's very important, because if we don't do that, it is extremely costly for everybody to come to Parkhurst, and it makes it very uncompetitive for the smaller players. This we do so that the smaller players can come and compete for your services as well, and you are not dominated by just 1 or 2 or 3 big players in the marketplace. That's about 20 kilometers from Parkhurst all the way to Terraco, and we'll lay 2 redundant fibers. That just means if somebody actually hacks the one to pieces, you won't be down. Okay, so it's redundant, it flows in sort of a ring, to simplify it. So, how is it going to be distributed? In fact, up and down every road, there will be fiber on both sides of the road. It will aggregate sort of the white little dots. You'll see sort of where the street cabinets in principle would be. Obviously, there will be practical implications where they would actually sit in the end. And then there will be sort of one central node which it will all aggregate in the Parkhurst community. So as soon as we talk about fiber, there's one big question. Are you going to dig up my sidewalk? Okay. And we might as well confront it now. There's really 2 mechanisms of doing this. The one is by trenching, as you've seen up and down the roads across Gauteng, as you've experienced, I think, a couple of times in your community, or aerial, effectively stringing it from pole to pole and then dropping it down to the premises where you want it to connect. And there's definitely advantages and disadvantages to the 2 scenarios. On the aerial side, there's clearly a lot less disruption, because you don't dig up my wonderful flower bed and cross my driveway. There's also less cost. It's actually a cheaper way of deploying it. It's not as much as people would think, but it is definitely a cheaper deployment method. On the other hand, some of the advantages of trenching is it's very easy to maintain. If it breaks, we've got little handholds which we open, and we blow more fiber through the ducts, and we sort the problem out. Where if it breaks on the aerial side, a cherry picker, access to somebody's property. You know, there's some other practical complications which we would need to overcome. It's much easier for us in trenching to provide additional capacity, because we would be simplistically putting in lots of ducts with lots of capacity. Just one of these ducts and one of these will be sufficient for 10 blocks. So when we need more capacity, we would be able to add it by just blowing fiber into the ground. We never have to open it up again. Where obviously, with aerial, we now need to effectively deploy again and again, because you can't actually leave spare capacity in the air, so to speak. It's safe and reliable, it's out of the way, it's out of sight, and it's not ugly. Okay. Downsides. Obviously, as I said, aerial has got limited capacity, third-party dependent. We're dependent on city power, telecom poles, the legalities around it, for how long can we use it. There's a variety of complexity there. It can look messy. Go on the internet and just go and have a look at some of the Japan deployments or Japanese deployments or some of the other parts. It can get really ugly over time as soon as there's more and more deployments over that period. And maintenance is a hassle. As we said, you need to get up in the air, you need to get into premises, etc. The downside of trenching obviously is disruptive. There's no way of getting around that. If you trench, there is some hold up, there is some discomfort by coming near your home, your driveway, and potential some traffic challenges at the time. And there's also a risk of damage. Maybe your beautiful tiles, one of them cracks along the way, or your, on your sidewalk, and we can't find a replacement. There's all of these sort of practical implications, and it's more expensive. But our proposal is to use trenched fiber as our default position. It is the longer term answer, but to make use of aerial where it makes sense. Understand that we're going to go to the boundaries of your business, of your homes. To see a cable hanging from an aerial cable down to the side of to the boundary of your wall is really going to be an ugly experience. Then let's say we don't put it to the boundary, we put it into the house. That means I need access to every single house in Parkhurst in order to deploy the fiber. So there's a lot of complexity if we had to do aerial. It sounds simple, but there's a lot of complexity. And I think if you think about trenched fiber, you need to think of going to the gym for about 3 months. You go to the gym for 3 months, but you are fit for the rest of life. There's a different angle. I have this New Year's resolution every year, but it seems to have to come back and back and back again. So that is our recommendation, and we know this is contentious. We know that it is a difficult process, and when I talk about how we deploy it, I'll try and show you how we mitigate it, how we communicate with you, and how we try and alleviate any distress that might happen during this process. But there's going to be some challenges. There's some of your roads here, especially down on the angles, where you've got beautiful sort of step-like sidewalks, etc. But we will address that with the homeowners. Our resident homeowners whisperer, Giorgio, he will get to know each of you intimately. We will engage with each of you intimately about how we are going to address the sidewalk issues and the driveway crossings. So I'm sure you're going to have questions. Just give me some time. We'll get to that at the end. So obviously, up and down the road on both sides, there will be manholes in some corners, as you see classically everywhere deployed. We will cross the driveways. We cannot avoid this. Sorry, but we cannot avoid that. We'll take every precaution to complete the build in a quality manner. We'll take pictures before we start the build, and we will reinstate them to the same or better quality afterwards. There will be challenges, as I've said, but we commit to work with you to make sure that that happens in the same way. And I know this is a promise, and I know you've had some experiences where there's some trenches still open somewhere in your area after I don't know how long. But for us, it is vital that this project is successful. It is our money that we're investing in here. We've got a much bigger plan. It is vital that this is successful. We will work with you to ensure that we get it back to the quality that it was. There's all kinds of civil engineers involved in the process. There's compaction testing that happens when we do the trenching so that it doesn't sag. We give you a warranty of a year that if it sags, we'll come back and fix it. There's a variety of stuff that we'll do to ensure that the work is of quality and that you have some remedy should it not be. And obviously we're going to actually live in the area for this whole project to ensure that we're accessible to the community and that we can actually work with you in resolving any of the issues around us. So we're going to do it sort of in blocks at a time. Okay? It'll take about 10 days to do one of the blocks. Okay? We'll do 10 blocks at a time, but dispersed across the community so that it's not big congestion anywhere. So it'll take about 10 days, 10 working days, where you might be disrupted on your driveway, and probably, or in the greater vicinity of your home. And we'll finish the block before we move on to another block. Okay? So it's not like it's going to be open and stay open and we move on to other parts. Finish, 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 and so we go. So from these trenches on your sidewalks, there will be a little tapping box that will, which will be mounted against your wall. Okay, it's about, I suppose, the size of this, sort of a general sort of little box that will be attached to the side of your wall. Now, where will we attach it? That's now obviously a big question because you've got some lovely walls. As part of our community engagement, we will engage with you. You'll each receive a little pink sticker, okay? Something like I love Vuma, or maybe I don't, something like that, which will be the size of the box. And you can go and put it anywhere, okay, not on the roof, but anywhere on your boundary wall, which you feel makes sense for you. And we will go and place the box there. So we're not just going to apply it as we see fit. Obviously, if it's in an extremely complex place, maybe it's over one of your water pipes or whatever the case may be, we will engage with you and say, well, maybe we should move it, etc. But you will be able to determine where that box will be. Okay. So in summary, I'm going to run down the wall, run down the street, little connection to your wall in the little box, which we will then distribute from into your house as soon as you're ready if you want a connection. There's no obligation, obviously. It's up to you if you actually want to use the network or not. So how do we get into the house? You've got two mechanisms. The one is ring up the call center and say, China, come, I need a connection. And we will send out a certified installer and they will come and install the fiber for you. They'll make a little hole through the wall if they need to in conjunction with the homeowner. We require the homeowner to be there and they'll lay the cable as you see fit into where you need to have a little device placed, which I'll show you in a second, where all your devices can be connected into. Think multi-choice dish installation, Teljoy type of environment. Installer model. You ring, they come, they put it in. Okay. Or, for the adventurous, you can actually do it yourself too. So they will be in the shop. In the area, we will have a little Vuma shop, probably next to the opticians down on 4th Avenue, where you can come and get yourself a DIY kit, where you can do it yourself. Okay? If you don't want anybody in your premise. It's not advised because it's a bit fiddly at times, etc. But clearly it's possible and clearly it can be done. And once that connection is in, you can activate the service. You plug in your device, be it your TV, your wireless router, and select online what service you want, and 20 seconds later it's activated. Okay. So what is the device that's going to be in the house? It's called the CPE. It's a customer premises equipment. But it's basically a little box. 9 holes where you plug in all of these devices, the same Ethernet type of plugins, and the device will recognize automatically, is it the TV, is the PC, is the Xbox, is the wireless router, and automatically configure what the device needs to do or needs to receive and how it needs to interact. There's no color coding, there's no, this one needs to be there. It is really pretty random, it self-provisions which port it's on. There's also a little hidden port for telemetry services. That's more like surveillance. So if you want to have in-house cameras in your house, you could, because you can deploy it over the web these days and see it on your phone, what's happening in your house. That's also possible. Okay, so it's all connected, it's all in the house. How do we order? So there'll be a portal. No, I don't think you can see actually. But you'll be able to choose a line speed. Say, okay, how much Vuma do I want? You know? And then you can choose from the service providers. For example, MWeb, the Vox, AfriHost, whoever you want. They will provide different services, different packages. Maybe it's voice, maybe it's just data. And ultimately, you'll have a much more greater variety as IPTV and some of the players are coming on board. And you select those services, and it provisions, and it's on. Okay. So it's pretty self-service, but then obviously a lot of people will not understand what all these things mean, and that's why we will have the shop in the area where people will be available and on the phone to assist and guide you through the process. What are your needs? What type of amount of time do you spend on the internet, etc., and then provide you with some of that information and help you through. Okay, so how's the deployment process going to work? We obviously plan. There. So there's a lot of detailed planning that's happening at the moment as we speak, while you're providing the moral commitment, while you're obtaining that from your community. We apply for way leaves from the local from the roads authorities and from all the necessary approvals that we need to get. And there's also an identification of services. There's about 14 providers in your area, from telecom to gas to power, etc., and they all have to approve our plans. Okay? Because we need to know where they are. They don't always know where they are, okay, but we need to know where they are. And while this is all happening, there's this community activation that's happening, which Proboa is leading, and with our help, will hopefully get us over that 30%, and we're doing a great job at the moment. Okay, so during that time, we need the moral commitment. As of late-ish this afternoon, you already have 373 moral commitments from your society. And I think that's great. You started on Friday? Thursday. That's already nearly 60%. And please, when you get to the 30, don't stop. Okay? So the target is about 627, and the leading street at the moment is 11th Street. Yeah. And that is actually quite important, because where are we going to deploy first? So there is a little bit of a race, but obviously it makes sense for us, where there's the most commitment, because as we pass the homes and the guys want to have the connection, I might as well just put it in as well. Okay? So it is important for us. It doesn't help us to start where there's no one that's really interested yet. So there is a logic to it, but it's also good to have a little bit of, a little bit of competition here in the community. So 11th Street is leading. Watch the parkvillage.com website and see how you're doing in the community. Okay, and obviously get your mates and your neighbors to get on board. Obviously, then we get to the most painful part, which is the construction phase. During that stage, we're going to be trenching, installing the ducts, boundary wall mounted boxes on your side of your wall, remember? CCTV cameras, the street cabinets, and the fiber. Okay, I'll talk about the duration of that in a moment. As soon as that is done, as you order your links, if you do, you install the fiber from the wall through your garden or whatever your configuration is, right into the house, and you put in the little box, which is your CPE, by the accredited installers or yourself if you want. And then you do that activation through online or via the shop, whichever way you want to do it. And you choose your services. And that's then provisioned in 20 seconds. Now, one of the key things in this whole project is communication. We focus a lot on this because we really don't want to do this to you. It's hard enough as it is. We need to collectively work and understand that we are trying to create something great here. So, there'll be lots of general interaction through the press and your local rags, etc., with the community. Every 2 weeks, we're going to have a steering committee with Proboa, where we will interact with them, keep us updated, understand the issues on the websites, through the social media. But we will also interact with each homeowner or tenant individually. So if we know we're coming down 11th, we know who's everybody in there, we'll go door to door, or we'll ring you, if you're comfortable doing that, and engage with you and say, okay, do you know where your sticker needs to be? Do we understand what's happening? Do you know for the next 10 days it's going to be, how do we want to go through your lovely rose bushes? How do we deal with that? And for example, we will use your WhatsApp. I understand you've got WhatsApp groups for your different blocks. So for example, if we go down, let's say 6th Avenue, everybody in that block will know, look, we're starting on Monday, we hope to be finished by the next Friday. Please be aware that we're going to be entering that area. If we hit a water pipe, we're aware of it, the service is on its way, please bear with us. We hit the power, you know, all of the sort of classic interaction. So yeah, and then during the construction phase, there's also a communication. As we finish the construction, we will get some of the authorized ProBoa members to come in, or street captains. So I think we came up with block captains type of concept, which can help to sign off the construction with us. We will have quality service professional quantity surveyors and quality engineers that will sign it off, but we will also have the residents present so that we can have the aesthetics, the qualitative aspect, rather than just purely as a technically right, involved in the community. Okay, so how long is it going to take? While we're waiting for all these authorities and approvals, we don't think we're going to get the whole of Parkhurst in one go, because they'll be concerned about us digging up the whole place in one go. So we'll probably get sectional sort of type of wayleaves from the JRA. While you're getting your moral commitment and our planning and appointment of the different contractors and staff happens, we reckon that we will start probably by about the 24th of August. You're well on your way with a moral commitment. I don't see you actually not getting to the 30%, so that won't be the hold-up, it's just the approvals. So then it'll probably start somewhere around the 29th of August, and it'll continue until the 12th of February. Now it sounds like a long time, but it isn't. It's 52 kilometers of trenches that we have to lay. Okay? It's from here to, wait, that's far. That's far. And the reason why the duration is of that nature is because between Christmas and sort of the middle of January, we can't actually dig, and you're not here. You're all in your fancy villas out by the sea. So there's sort of a window where we can't actually do anything, but we're going to do it, as I said, in about 10 blocks at a time. We'll be in construction, and we finish the 10 blocks and move to another 10 blocks. There'll be sort of a logical sequence to it. And as soon as those first blocks are finished and the distribution network is finished, then we will start to switch people on. So we're not going to wait until the 12th of February before you can do your services. We think by around October, some of the first services can be switched on. And we're going to need some guinea pigs, okay, to make sure everything is good. So yeah, so I think somewhere in October, we can expect to have that happen. Clearly, it's a complex project. I don't know, have you been in a construction project involved with your home or anywhere where it's actually finished on time? So, but we hope that it will finish in time in February. Okay? It makes sense for us too to get it finished in time. Okay, so how does the service work? Sorry, I'm nearly there. How does the service work? It's a combination of line and data. Line from Vuma, remember we have the infrastructure, order the line, data from your ISPs. The choices are going to be quite substantial, we believe, where you can choose different combinations of packages and services. Okay, so from us and from the ISP. So what is the line's going to cost? You might have heard this magical number for the 4 meg service, and that's a true 4 meg service. It's not this up to 4, actually 1. It's free. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Then a 50 meg service for $4.99 a month, 100 meg service for $6.99 a month, and then a gig for the real geeks out there at $1,299 a month. There's some once-off costs. Remember that once-off installation from your boundary into the house, $1,500. More or less the same as installing a dish or whatever the case may be. And then an activation fee of about $9.99. It gets waived in certain cases, especially at the higher end, because obviously it's a monetary, there's quite a big monetary commitment. So we've got the 4 products: Vuma Free, Vuma, Vuma, and Vavuma. Yeah. We really had a couple of whiskeys while I was going. Okay, so we said that we're going to price it as competitively to the ADSL, and you'll actually go and see, if you actually, you won't be able to see here, but our 50 meg service compares to a 4 meg service that you currently would buy over a copper service. And the 100 meg, on the 20, I think. Yeah, pretty much to a 20 meg service you buy, and then obviously the gig, there's no comparison. So the rand per meter per megabit per second, which is a complicated sum, basically the answer is that it is dramatically cheaper for the amount of bandwidth that you get on the line, compared to what is available out in the marketplace today. Why are we doing this? Are we mad? No. We think this is a utility. Not trying to recover the money next year. This is a utility. It's going to be in the ground for 20 years, 40 years. So we need to take a utility type view on this project. We look at it as infrastructure rather than a 2-year, 3-year type of payback. And that's the difference. Everybody else tries to recover the money now. How can you recover infrastructure in 2 or 3 years? This is big projects, long-term projects. Okay. And we hope that you come by pricing it that way. And we get a lot more uptake than we would have gotten traditionally. There's no secret there, it's get the people on board. Okay, so that's a line price. Then how do we think the data prices are going to be? So the ISPs are coming now. All of them are coming with their prices and they are starting to compete, which is great to see. So, typically, you have a low user which really uses the internet very little, but they need access. They might need to send email, etc. So they need a sort of a thin service with not a lot of data. Yeah? So that's classically 4 megabits per second and 20 gigs of data. Currently you would pay cheapest bundles that you can get, plus the line rentals, 505. Today, just with the internet service providers that's already signed up, you'll pay 170 rand a month. That's it. 4 meg line. And it's a 4 meg line. Not a up to 4 meg line, it's a 4 meg line. 4 meg line. 170 bucks. The cost of a telephone line rental today. General user, let's say uncapped 4 meg service. Sorry, that service is provided, for example, the example I'm using here is Vox. Okay? Vox will be supplying the service. Unshaped. 4 megs, uncapped, unshaped. This is your local ISP. Cool ideas. 300 bucks. Unlimited, uncapped, unshaped, 4 meg service. Compared to what you would pay today, which is about 853. It's about a third, and we haven't even started competing. Okay. So I'm just trying to set the scene for you. There is going to be really a marked difference. I don't want you to spend less. I just want you to buy more and get more value. Medium users, I can go on and on. 50 megs at 100 gigs is about a 500, 600 bucks saving, and you get 50 megs instead of a 10 meg service. So, and the heavy users, it just goes to about 1,000 bucks saving. Okay, so there's also some other stuff that you can expect. For example, Vox is offered today that anybody that comes on board get a 20 gig free voucher to try the service for free. So if you really wanted to try it for free without really spending any money, take the 4 meg service for free, 20 gig voucher, which will last you quite a bit of time, and you can try the service. And then if you want to get off, then I have a problem, not you. Also, Samsung, for example, is looking at bundling. Think of your TV as like your device, your mobile device. Line, device, data. To bundle it in packages. To go and buy in the shop, say, oh, can I have this package, this 2-year package, which is, let's say, box data, Samsung TV, and a Vuma line. Okay, so that's coming. Will you be able to get uncapped data? That's a big question, actually, a lot of the guys ask, especially the guys that download and stream movies and I don't know what else. Yes, you will. But what I think you need to understand is the reason why uncapped in South Africa has happened is because it is such a thin pie that you are inherently capped. You can't download it. Okay? So it's quite cool to say, no, uncapped, because they know you can't actually download it. So obviously there's a little bit of fear now with these big pipes coming into the marketplace. So I think what you should expect is that, yes, it'll be available, but it'll be expensive for a while until they've really understood how much data we would consume with this kind of technology. But in reality, you will find big data bundles at very cheap prices too, as you could see from some of the earlier examples. So yeah, so I think, yes, it'll be there, but you won't be able to, you'll be able to get it, but it will be probably expensive at the moment because of the fear of how much data will go down. Okay, but that'll sort itself out. So what is Vuma? Vuma speed. We start our priced offerings at 50 megs. We want you to leap into the future. And if you simply want to have the basic service of 4 megs, we think that's sort of a human right. Okay? If you really want a slow service, you can have it for free. The only thing you really need to pay for is speed. It doesn't help us to put in 5 and your real need is low. Okay? But it's not all about cost. You obviously have now a lot of other opportunities, voice over IP services. You'll be able to cut any of the voice calls. For example, Vox and Connection Telecom offers you'll be able to save about 30 to 50% on your call rates that you currently get from ringing, let's say from Telkom to any of the operators or the other operators. There's a lot of options there. Remote working, you know, the journos, the guys that's in the advertising industries, the doctors, they consume a lot of data, so potentially there's a lot of opportunity for them to work more from home. That's got a lot of other extra benefits. Entertainment, obviously download the stuff faster. Netflix, Hulu, all of this sort of stuff. Don't know how we get past Super Sport, but we will. So there's a lot of stuff, you know, that'll be able to be added to your lives. And then obviously also IPTV. It opens a whole new world of content out there in the world where you can download and obtain content which you probably can't get locally because of the lack of bandwidth in your environment. But let's not forget about security. Remember, this is the premise of your original project. You had, what, 19 incidents in March, I think. By providing security in your community and in your homes will ultimately obviously benefit you for obvious reasons, but also there's some ancillary benefits. Some of the insurance firms, Hollard and Discovery Insure, for example, is looking at downgrading, should this be the case, your community in their actuary tables, that you become a safer area. You know, there's all kinds of ancillary benefits for you by providing. And then there's other stuff like smart metering, measure your water and electricity, but that'll come. It's not now. I think it'll come over the next couple of years. As soon as this is established, you'll be able to get some access to that sort of stuff. Video conferencing, obviously, with a high upload and download speed, you're going to have, you know, that crisp. You'll be able to see your grandkids in crisp format when they're in Canada or whatever. Okay, so CCTV monitoring. We'll install the fiber to all the CCTV cameras, whoever your provider is that you choose. So you'll be able to monitor the suburb. It'll be high definition. You'll be able to monitor the whole public environment online, whatever their services that they offer. But ultimately, because we own the infrastructure, you can switch from providers as well. Again, choice, and you're not tied to one because they put in the infrastructure in the ground. So yeah, sorry, I've spoken a long time, but ultimately we've got a goal. And that is to make Parkhurst the most connected suburb in South Africa. So when you drive down the road and you see the trench and you think, oh my word, I'm going to be late for work again. No, it's a short time. We're going to be fit for life. It's adding a lot of money to my value of my house. I'm going to be safer, and ultimately it's worthwhile. And that's what our objective is with you in this project. So we're very excited. I hope we're going to work lekker together to get this done. You must have loads of questions. Yes?
Sounds all exciting. I've got a couple of concerns. So the first concern that I have is, criminals are also smart people. So your boxes that those funky boxes you talked about, they will go and vandalize those boxes because they know the camera system isn't working and that it's business as usual. The downside to that is that we won't have any connectivity. And yes, while you could probably send out a team, over time it becomes a little bit unsustainable. So that's the first question.
Okay.
My second question is, well, it's more of a comment. I heard you throw a couple of words in there which I don't quite agree with. Uncontended, certainly not.
It'll be uncontended over our network. You'll find that some of the other ISPs will be uncontended from their own end.
No, they won't be. One main uncontended, you're looking at about 8,000.
Yes, but it'll be available.
But
yeah.
Okay. The second thing is 1,000 megabits per second or 1 gig.
Yeah.
Although you may be able to provide that over your network, I don't believe there's any service provider in the world that can provide that as a consumer-based service for homes.
I think time will tell. Korea, Sweden, the Netherlands, this is a general service that gets provided. They don't start there, I know, but it's a question of over time. It'll
but
come.
You're selling the premise that I'm going to download a route and I think it's maybe a bit of a misconception.
No, I'm trying to illustrate, sorry, I was trying to illustrate the difference between ADSL and fiber, the capacity of the...
But a 4 meg fiber isn't going to do that. It's going to
do
the same speed as ADSL.
If it's 4 meg ADSL.
Absolutely. Another comment I've got is, you're trenching from Parkhurst all the way to Terrico.
No.
Isn't that duplication?
No, we are using dark fiber, Africa fiber.
Okay. No, that's the...
Yeah.
Because you said...
Yeah, I don't want to duplicate the infrastructure, so I'm using somebody's fiber.
You can respond to that.
Okay, let me try and remember what the first one was. I think the contention ratios, I've already got prices for uncontended services, especially at the bottom, okay? There will be, on the portal, there will be, as clear as possible, as the ISPs make it, a breakdown of contention ratios. There's 1 to 10 contention ratios, etc. But what we make very easy for them at the moment is by bypassing the whole telecom infrastructure. From Terrico on, there are big pipes. It's much easier to make it a lot lower contention, if not uncontended, from that particular point in time. Sure. And time will tell. I'm getting prices through that, but yeah, they are pricey. Yeah. But if you have a need for that, you could get. Yeah. Security. Yeah. No, look, there's no value in the fiber, as we know. We will need to work with the security companies to understand how we will address that, whether we bypass, if it's all buried or not. I haven't got an answer for you on that. We'll need to work with your security company. But Craig Allpark's got it. There's some areas that's already got it. We can learn a lot of lessons from their experience.
The cameras on the box.
Sorry, can you maybe just stand there's everyone here.
Yeah, so the security camera network that the security firms will be using to monitor the public area, that's not connected to the wall box per se. So that is dedicated fiber that is running from them. You will be able through the active layer of the network be able to monitor it. But vandalization of the wall box will not affect the function of the camera. It's affect the block, but not.
Can I just make a comment? So the bigger picture from the last meeting was that we decided to go with a single security provider. That's what we're going towards. We haven't not Vumatel. But if we do have that, then my understanding is we'll have a security company monitoring pockets. Then people come in to vandalize the box, the security company will notice it and they'll act on it. And it's not necessarily Vuma's issue, it's our security company's issue to then monitor that. So
It's just a concern.
yeah, it's a good concern and something I've thought about as well, but I don't think that that it will be something that should be repeated. If they come in once, they should be caught. That's why we're putting this. Yeah, all of that stuff. So that's.
Sorry, there was a question over there.
It's a simple question. You're putting in a pipeline and you dig a huge space 6 foot down and making
Joe? That's a good question, actually.
Good question. So we'll probably go on the tree. But that's really useful for bedding. Bedding is putting the ducts you need a lot of bedding around the ducts and you get the compaction actually. And we'll be going to 600.
No.
But that depends on what the road authority allows us to do. We think 600 is probably adequate because there's so much services in the area already. Established area that we won't have power of our own services. Okay, just a comment to stop that for me. I'm getting 500 kilobytes.
Yes. Thank
There is still the data file of 180 bytes. Sorry, like 4 minutes. Sorry, another question.
Yeah.
Um, in about 18 months, Telkom will be offering consumer ADSL. Sorry. In about 18 months, Telkom will be offering consumer ADSL prices for free, included in the bundled service. So how would that affect your model? Because your model is based on the premise that Telkom is ripping us off, which they are, and I'm certainly not.
We should not really for most obvious reasons that the line continuation of the copper is so poor that I'm receiving there's one
way. And I think with the new management that Telkom
Okay, can I maybe answer that?
We've got a lot of questions. So LC needs to ask, and then
Okay.
the
Sorry, just on that. We only allowed for a certain uptake in our model to make the model financially viable. We were not ambitious enough to say that we will be the only competitor in this marketplace, because obviously there is the incumbent that might come. And yes, they might come, and then it is fair competition out there in the marketplace. I hope and I believe this is a great project that we're going to do, and the ramifications is that we're going to wake up the slumbering giant, which is going to benefit all of South Africa in this process. And that's really, if that's what we achieve and get connectivity here, that is fantastic. Sorry, yes. Get you.
infrastructure you're obviously changing up and down roads, and doing it once, that's fine. But we just people never innovate on. Or constantly doing, what's the impact, say, for instance, 2 years down the line, my neighbor decides to rip up this driveway and redo it? What's the impact of my service from actually putting it in? Other words, e-cracks cable, I think, glass, or something. And does that then impact the entire street up to the open access point, which is possibly not possible to do?
If we're going to be diverse, all the way to single block. So we cut it off on the single block. So if we renovate your cable, it's cut off depending which side you are probably to the aggregation point. Typically, the houses in the single block, typically from that point down, will be affected. These are the maximum up to about 24 houses. And we've got a SLA ourselves to repair. Yeah, we've got an SLA our SLA to repair that plant. So we're actually that's one of the reasons why we first went forward to this type of environment. We've got to get back and it's much easier for us to grow, introduce cable, reconnect plus
It's also 600 deep, so by being 600 deep, it's just deep enough that you don't get it with a, with a back actor. And
well, the back actor will get it.
Let's try to keep not ask yes.
Yeah.
Neil, it's also very exciting. The second question you have on the side is who is Vumatel?
Yeah.
Similarly, you are also making really large financial. You might elaborate on exactly who is Vumatel, so who's putting in the money, and to the extent that 18 months down the line, all money runs out, where does that leave us in terms of service provider? So I'm trying to say who the shareholders of Vumatel.
Yeah. There's currently two shareholders. Myself and Johan. It's all our personal money. It'll cost about $30 million to put this into Far Coast. Okay, so no debt or anything like that. We have in the past used funding from, for example, the IDC, the Development Bank of South Africa. This is all infrastructure finance, and those boys are all looking at great anticipation, at this project. The project will be financially viable in the sense that we've got enough capital for the project to survive. Doesn't matter what happens in reality. It's our money. It also, it'll run. So we plan to do another 9 suburbs next year. Okay? So first we're going to prove the model here. Then we'll deploy 9 next year, which will be maybe another 200 million. Okay? And then 100 from there on in. We pass 200,000 now. So we can finance the first tranches ourselves, and then from there on we will need debt funding. But believe me, they're all sitting here, and you can imagine that it's a very interesting project in that sense. So it's all self-financed at the moment.
Will you be buying a completion bond?
Sorry,
Will you be purchasing a completion bond? Insurance, that might go right now.
No, we've got, well, it's all just cash, so there's no, it's all just cash that gets injected into this. So no, there's no completion model or anything like that. Obviously, there's all kinds of stuff like insurance, indemnity insurance, and there's 20 million indemnity insurance for if something happens, and homes and that sort of stuff. That's all required for us as a licensee in order to be able to do this.
I think let's take the lady up there.
Sorry, yes.
Hi, I have a basic order question. I've been in Harvard for 18 years. And I just want to get an understanding of the backbone that's going through either the orange pipes, I don't know if that's near term, right? I mean, MTN.
We won.
Okay, it's not five.
It's fine.
But five, right? And it's MTN will be putting in their fiber optic backbone into January.
Yeah, everybody is.
So this main, right, the backbone is going through the city of Johannesburg, the Island City project, and the MTN for its business node project. Okay. How is Vumatel tapping into that fiber optic backbone? What benefits will come down? Do you know what benefits will come down the line? I know there's some directed to your business model, but in terms of future, we would be from other than services, a last mile, etc. So I'm looking at streaming, the whole etc. How you live in something you feel that the city will and
The way it's evolved in the previous businesses, you start, there's normally 1 or 2 backhaul providers that come in, provide the backhaul. But over time, everybody wants access to the consumer. So in order to get access to the consumer, either they have to be on our network, or they have to put their backbone onto our network so that they can get access to this last mile infrastructure. So at the moment, we don't anticipate, them to come in this infrastructure shorter because they can still just connect the territory. Everybody's there, it doesn't really make any difference to them. But maybe I would envisage that more backgrounds will potentially come and connect and potentially provide some services.
So, maybe just on a practical level, relocating the distribution hub in Parkers. So we know we've got Indian fiber running here, BY fiber, Vumatel fiber running here. So it's possible for them to just interconnect the local location solution.
And from a regulatory perspective, in terms of competition within the last mile environment, have you heard anything about competition increase, encourage competition from regulators so that they'll bring market down?
I think that's the whole purpose. The whole Electronics Act, which was changed, I can't remember, was it 2004 or somewhere around there? The whole purpose of that was to create competition in South Africa. And what happened, unfortunately, is Neotel came in and there was a lot of promise, but we went for the low-hanging fruit and just went for businesses, which didn't create competition as we imagined. And it's an expensive exercise. You can see it. It's not easy. It's a tricky exercise, and maybe that year there was not a lot of demand for that as it there is today. So it grows about 50% every year. But the whole objective of ICASA and the regulators is to really instill competition, because that allows us, for example, to do this here, which can stimulate the whole economy and stimulate competition in the marketplace. So we don't foresee that there's going to be any hampering, and we'll actually just force the hand maybe on the local income bundling at the copper level, which is one of the
I mean, we help and the Wi-Fi provider, they will hopefully
That's the idea.
So we should expect that.
That's the idea. Yeah, I can't vouch for the cleverness of that money. Yes.
Some of the speeds that you quoted, are they significant?
We on our net, from up to the Terraco will be symmetrical, and then the suppliers, as far as we can see at the moment, all of them will provide symmetrical services. So 4, 10, 10, 100, 100. But there will be some, I will tell you. Yeah. But there will be some that maybe their networks from there on in. But the contention ratios and the up and down load speeds will be stipulated, so you understand what your up and down symmetrical services.
I would say start, finish,
Guys, sorry, can you please ask your questions for the floors here?
So I was asking for the planning in place from start to finish. Parts, condition test.
Yes, conditions attached to it.
Secondly, if things do go wrong, all the things can go wrong. You might go line, number of or have a payment which has not been prepared. Things go wrong. Who is more the association? Who can take the action to against the government warranty? Who's contracting?
That's contracting, that's providing a service. And it's lovely to have the community involved, but ultimately we have a license to something about it will be.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's an issue, your real recourse is firstly the roads authority, because we do it under their way, right? They can enforce penalties and pressures on us. Your second avenue of recourse is cost. Who will retract the ECAS license. So there's recourse for pressure. We can't leave more than 400 meters of trench open anyway. Otherwise, we get fined quite hefty. It's just poor policing generally that causes the kind of environment that you see generally, and it's sort of that kind of thing. You drive past it and you go, you know what? Yeah, remember to do something about that. But then people forget. You actually do that with people.
So they're not contract project.
Our contract is effectively with the JRA and every rating that we sign, we have to reinstate within a certain period.
Okay, guys, I think we can take another question unless there are any other urgent questions, and then there's one more thing that we can raise. And sorry, you, and then Paul with the back.
Keep the person receives is wonderful. But what about bandwidth? At some point, bandwidth will be short. Is there enough bandwidth?
You mean here locally in
Yeah.
That's why we have additional capacity. But I mean, I think as soon as everybody has got 1 gig lines and partners, maybe 10 to 15 years from now where it doesn't happen, but that's why the trenching really works. Because we provide ample capacity, provide additional fibers to the home, and the equipment will be upgraded every 5 years. In fact, we'll put a single fiber to the home, but there's actually 2 for every home in our plan already.
Yeah, I think just on the capacity issues, the kind of things that we need to keep in mind is that eventually we will get things like e-health, e-government, all of those things happening. And, you know, some of that stuff is secure data environments, etc. So you'll have those kind of providers like the Discoveries and government, etc. saying, well, you know, actually I don't want to be on a shared strand of just data. I'm worried about what happens on that breakout. That's also why we prefer trenching and having the extra duct. So when it happens, we can pull an extra strand of fiber to the home.
Paul?
I just want to share a conversation that you told me. You probably like me moan and groan about the fact that you nail things that you get on the I can very regularly on what before they come and tell me these things. It happens. So I always say and said, just let me let you know, you actually can't do it. You're too far from Rosemary, and you're on a copper platform. We are supposed to be giving you a 4 meg line. We're pushing 4 megs, but you're never going to get enough money. I said, but surely that's, you know, how can that be? That's it. Forget it. It's not going to change. So, thank you very much. I'm waiting. Get my guys in 30 streets and get on the list. Because it's not going to change. It's not going to change. It's not going to change.
Are there any other questions for Vuma? Do you throw some that? I asked you.
Is there a movement of say a street that provides a large gap between each property? So if you have one take up, I mean, hypothetically.
No, we look at it as a whole big batch, the whole area. So as soon as we get an aggregate of 30%.
Yeah. And secondly, if, I mean, I know from start there was some considerable degree of trenching done a while ago in the second hand, and one of you were lucky enough to have that having resurfaced. What's current trenching with that? What current fiber would that be?
No, second.
Second is down of the second. So, one last question. The current service provision, say, under the Internet Solutions.
Yeah.
How, and shades, it runs through 4 ways and markets. 4 ways is very fast connection, 40 megabytes. Yeah. How, with implementation of the fiber here, how would I have to change that service with my current service provider?
I mean, that will have to be done on case by case basis. In fact, I'm seeing Internet Solutions tomorrow. But you'll have sort of different spot solutions which will be which we'll need to figure out with your current providers on how we would satisfy them. But theoretically, you know, if the fiber is here and there's fiber to your home and it goes all the way back to Zander in Terrico, theoretically it should be not a problem at all.
Okay. Well, what you can do tonight, we've got a laptop at the back. If you want to do your moral sign up, you can do so at the laptop at the back. We've got that available to you. Or you can do that at home. No, that's what you can do is up an iPad and a laptop. So there's lots of, if you want to do it, Come here, we'll help you out. Right, there's a question over here.
I just wanted to say I think it's a wonderful initiative. I'm very impressed with the Residents Association. And I'm lazy and I think you're fantastic.
So join them.
Thank you, join us, join us.
And I just want to say we've all been ripped off by telecom for so long. And I've been ripped off by my service provider anyway. They're equally useless. They keep sending me modems to the ADSL line and it doesn't work. So one of the next things, I'd love somebody to tell me a good service provider when the fiber thing is working.
Okay, well, I guess we'll probably have some ratings thing. Chris, I'll get to you now. I just want to say, before we end on the Vuma thing, we do have some people here who want to tell you about SnapScan. I don't want to muddle up things altogether, but in terms of the app and so on, so here's the man. But we're just going to finish with the Vuma stuff, and then I think this, in terms of being a highly connected neighborhood, electronic forms of paying, all of that, I think it is of interest. Perhaps stay, listen to what that is. Won't take very long, 3 minutes.
3 minutes, no question.
Worth your while, but let's just conclude on the Vuma issue. Chris, you had a point.
As a quick question, when are you going to start cutting your prices?
Our price.
Okay, we'll have a look. No.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, now they're all very interested because, yes, sure. The real interest for them is, for once, I mean, I understand your problem, for example, about the ISPs and the service that you're getting, and they are not always perfect. But I have to say, in general, the problem doesn't sit on that side. The problem sits on the infrastructure which is giving you poor service. And we extrapolate that to the service providers because we really engage with them. So they are really interested because the quality of the service will be a lot better. They cut out some cost out of the network. We make it easy for the customer to sign up, and they can actually provide a much better service and provide some other content. So yeah, so MWeb, Afrios, Box, IS, all of the players are interested in coming. So they're now trying to figure out how to compete.
Okay, we've got 2 more questions that I've seen. I think then probably that's it. I'm sure Neil will be around afterwards as well, at the back, and then
Cool. Sorry, just to continue along that line with the service providers. Obviously, looking at my understanding from an ISP point of view, you're looking at an interconnect, IPC interconnect at Terraform, you know.
That's right.
I'm sure, as you said, automation providers are seeing it. And apart from, as they just asked, they're on board with it and they know what's going on. Have they talked about value-add services that they are looking at packaging up, like you mentioned? I mean, no one does IPC yet. Netflix, Hulu, great examples, but they're already legal.
That's right.
And you can't do that when you can't legal. So I was just wondering, with this kind of thing, anything you can around
There's two players trying to dip their toes into the market shortly. That is the problem that still will have to be addressed over time.
okay. One more question in the front, and then we'll move on to
My question is, initially you said you wanted the smaller ISPs to get involved, but you're naming all the big guys. So how?
It's easier to start with the big ones. I get requests all the time from the smaller ones. But when there's different classes of ISPs, or let's say buying power of ISPs. I'm not saying small necessarily in terms of aspirations, whatever, but you have the large ones that can buy a lot of backhaul at a much cheaper price, or buy from Telkom at a much cheaper price, and that's how they compete. Pricing some of the smaller, ambitious players, or that's got slightly different offerings in the market.
You're not answering my question.
I don't know, Cool Ideas, for example, is on.
And Cool Ideas has provided the Wi-Fi for this evening.
There's a variety. Ryan fields a lot of them because everybody is pushing Ryan as well. There's a lot of them coming.
I think you'll see that probably on your service offering when we go live.
That's right. This is a process of socializing this with the ISPs as well at the moment, and for them to understand that the project is real. It's fine to talk to them in a hypothetical sense, but now that they see that Parkhurst is real, everybody is, oh, okay, I need to play. I need to come and compete. So it's just going to take a couple of weeks or a bit of time to get everybody on board.
Okay. Right, I'm just going to hand you over first of all, Sam, introduce yourself, and then we'll...
Hey guys, I'm Ben. I just flew in from Cape Town. Thank you very much for the 3 minutes of your time that I promised I will only take. If you want to ask me questions afterwards, you can come find me somewhere. Basically, SnapScan is a mobile application. It's free to download and free to use. You link it to your credit card. So you put in your credit card details. From that point on, I don't know if some of you might have seen or heard about it. A business has a code which is printed on a stand. It's in the shop. It's in 4th Avenue Coffee Roasters, for example. You walk in. They say how much, you say I want a coffee. They say, cool, it's 20 Rand. You scan that code with your phone using the phone's camera in the application. You choose the amount, similar to cash, not similar to a credit card where you hand over the card and they choose the amount. And then you basically choose how much you want to charge your credit card and they get paid out into their business account. The cool thing about this is the business doesn't need a card machine, they just need a piece of paper so they don't have to pay for the card machine and keep on replacing the paper, all that kind of stuff. So if you're a business owner and you're interested in that, then check us out. If you're a customer, then try out the app. It's really safe to use. If you want to know why it's safe and you're skeptical, then come ask me afterwards. I promise you it's safer than a card. What we're aiming for here is getting rid of a wallet eventually and reducing cash in the system, or in whatever system we're tackling. The cool thing about Parkist, which is really exciting for me, is that you guys are obviously quite a tight-knit community, and we're looking for a tight-knit community to have as a kind of the ideal community for SnapScan, and adding on then features that would benefit the community. So at the moment we're all over South Africa and we've got people from all corners shouting at us, but we need like a hotspot where we can actually add services to you guys that you want. So I think you'll be able to pay maybe for the security services as well with it, and also at the market fair for it. Great use case for the market fair that you can't have a card machine at a small little store that's only around for one day. With SnapScan you can sign up, you pay 3%, you don't pay a sign-up fee, you don't pay a rental fee, and you can accept card payments. And the customers then at the market, you don't have to worry about how much cash do I need or withdrawing cash. That's it. Unfortunately not. I'm just going to play this video, so feel free to run away and go home or watch the video. Unfortunately there's no sound, but basically what happens here is you scan the code with the application. That then brings up the merchant onto your phone. The merchant is free to prepare your goods, so it speeds up queue times as well. You enter your PIN. That then charges your bank card. You've chosen the amount, and they basically receive a notification via SMS. So there's no extra hardware required. They just use an existing cell phone, and it's much more lightweight. And I think it's cool. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, right. So we will be running it at the village fair, as we've said. So it'll be a nice, hopefully mainly cashless environment. So feel free to give it a whirl and let us know how you feel about it.
Yeah, if you have questions, come find me afterwards.
Right, so the questions here for SnapScan, there's questions here for Vuma, and thank you everyone for coming. And if you want to sign up,